Hi guys, Speedy here, and welcome back to another episode of Planet Zoo, our fourth episode here in our still unnamed zoo, and today we are leveling up our habitat game. We are putting aside the flat habitats, we are putting aside the default gates, we are really going for something a little bit different here, trying to develop my own building skills, and we are going to be making an island enclosure for an animal that I think really suits the island vibe, and that is the lemurs. So of course, lemurs being endemic to the African island of Madagascar, what better animal to put on this island enclosure? So the first thing we're doing here is creating a space for that habitat. We've got the circular path and now playing around to create a circular wall to put around the enclosure. Guests looking down to our lemur island. Now, it's not going to be a complete island because I couldn't work out how to get the staff into the habitat, so there is most of an island. But that is what we're going to be doing here with this brand new lemur habitat here in our zoo. So just working here on this technique for creating circular buildings or any sort of circular structure that you're trying to create, and that is to build the extremities at each end. So you can see here we've got the walls at each end, just moving the detailing across here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select that, and with the smart duplicate and move, we're going to go all the way around here in 15-degree increments. Then for this last one here, we just have to kind of slot it in very nicely, and I'll also remove here the pylons on this duplicate one so that it doesn't look like they overlap, because they don't quite overlap perfectly. And now we can just do the same thing here with this one, moving it by the 15 degrees, and voila, we will have a perfectly circle enclosure. This episode, as you might have noticed, is a little bit shorter. That's because I really wanted to focus on the enclosure building. So in the last few videos, I've sprinkled in a bit of general park detailing, but what I really want to do in the future is keep habitat building and general zoo detailing quite separate, because I know that there are some people who are far more interested in habitats and not so much in the actual zoo itself. And hopefully as we get some more interesting habitats, those videos will be of more interest to people who are just more interested in habitat builds. So here with our lemur island now, we're enclosing the moat around that, playing around a little bit with the water level, so that we can kind of, really get a beach feel. Water needs to be a bit deeper, I feel, so doing that, and that all really starts to come together as we go. As I said, not going to encompass the whole area because I couldn't work out how to get the staff in and out of the enclosure otherwise. So happy with the water level now, and so going to add that little section after we paint on some sand texture, so it really feels like a beach. So this really feels like a entire island with sand coming all the way around. Taking out the water now because this is the bit that really took me the longest, and that is getting in the habitat gate and also the pathing. So because I had the path above, the path that goes around the guest path, the zookeeper path underneath that they were using to get in and out of the exhibit really didn't want to be there, and playing around with terrain as well, it can get very tricky. Eventually I was able to figure that out. I had to edit out probably like 40 minutes of me playing around with this, which in hindsight I was just overlooking a few things, but I'm still kind of getting back into this game, learning a few things. So I think that's part of the experience though, is learning about different habitats. Putting some extra pathing in here now, that's something we'll talk about in maybe the next episode on my first proper detailing episode. So we could finally now get back to enclosing in the habitat gate, just null barriers. So this is going to be the first habitat here that I've really used with null barriers, so building my own custom barriers. And I've probably gone overkill a little bit by having the moat around the exhibit and also having the raised wall, but at the same time, if I'm going to have that section for the keepers to enter in, then the raised wall is actually quite critical to preventing my lemurs to escape. We're going to be putting all three species of base game lemurs into this enclosure, so the ring-tailed lemurs, the red ruffed lemurs, and the black and white ruffed lemurs. quite nice that we have those different species even with me currently not possessing many of the DLCs. I was having a quick look. I have the Australian DLC and the Africa DLC. So not a ton of DLC animals we'll be able to include, but there is the possibility later for me to maybe pick up some more, and we'll see, just depending on how this series goes and the direction that we want to take it. Working on the keeper entrance now so that the zoo staff and also the animals can enter in. So side of having this slope, which I'll eventually hide, bring in a lemur, because that way I can sort of track foliage and terrain and making sure it's all up to the animal standards, I guess. Just trying to smooth this out to give it more of a beach feel and not just a sheer cliff for the moat, so that it's sort of, the goal here is really to have an island type feel, and a smooth sandy beach is very much a part of that experience. And leaving some areas where it is a bit steeper is good, but for the most part I wanted the animals to be able to really get down to the water level and drink from this water if they wanted, because obviously in real life they don't drink because it's ocean, but we have fresh water here. So now playing around a little bit with the terrain. At the moment I'm still kind of using the animal terrain as a guide, but in the interest of aesthetics in the long term I may ignore that a little bit more. And then I really had this plan for this to have a sort of a hill in the middle, so that the island was kind of raising to a point, and then having a big feature tree in the middle of the island. So you can see me here going through checking what's this, and then eventually, of course, the Kapok. How could we not go with the Kapok? Because that thing is enormous. And now just using some rocks around here to cover up. I eventually created a situation where my zookeepers couldn't even get in, but we do eventually go and fix that. So with that covered up, with the big centerpiece tree, sort of trying to make this feel a bit more hilly, and now into some climbing enrichment. So I could have built my own, but I probably would have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on something that realistically didn't have a lot of a shot of being much better than what the base game climbing is. I like to build my own things when possible, but I really felt like this was a situation in which the time and effort was really not worth it. So we've put in 2 of the lemur climbing, and now just a lot of foliage. So using a lighter surface, because I'm placing on that slope surface, it doesn't quite behave as nicely, and it's very easy to have bits that appear to be just hovering in the air. So I've tried to mitigate that as well by shrinking things into the ground as such. This is the first habitat we're building here that has more of that jungle vibe, as opposed to the first 2 exhibits with the giraffe and the lion. Very savanna, lots of open space, not a lot of ground coverage or trees, so not really an opportunity for me to really show off the different foliage. But this, being more of a jungle vibe, was really that opportunity. So throwing lots of tropical rocks, lots of tropical ground cover, with bushes and the scaviola particularly, putting in a lot of that, shrinking down some of these trees, shorter trees, to make them feel more like bushes. That's something I did as well up on the slope, because it's a bit harder to get a more natural look. So by shrinking some trees into just the foliage, I feel like it makes quite nice bushes, without having to worry about whether or not they appear to be floating or whatever. Lots of rocks, rock work and foliage work. It's the cornerstone of habitat decoration. Any Planet Zoo content creator, and there are many who are far more skilled and successful than I am, will tell you that that is the key to dressing up your habitat. So that is what I've tried to do to the best of my ability here, and I really had the opportunity with the biome that was selected. So now just pulling in lots of different lemurs. I think we've got 14 or 15 in here at the minute, but I mean the enclosure is quite large, so there is the opportunity for a lot more, adding in some food and water. And then into the enrichment, we had the climbing enrichment, of course, but now some toys and games. So a couple of the ice balls, the first one which immediately rolled straight into the ocean, so just doing another one rather than fixing the first one, which is a decision. A couple of food enrichments, the big foraging pit sort of thing, which I do decorate up here a little bit now. So some extra decoration. I finished it. I decided I wasn't happy with the decoration, so I wanted rocks around here rather than the obviously artificial timber framing. So this feels a little bit more natural. It still doesn't look natural because there's just a big pile of rocks about it, but the rocks themselves feel like they fit more so with the vibe here. So doing that and just more ground coverage now, and we are, as a matter of fact, starting to come towards the end of this episode as we finish off with this work here. So this is the Lemur Island, home to 3 different species of lemurs. So finishing off the final touches here with some rock and foliage work, but we are about to be done with this exhibit. So if you have enjoyed the video today, if you enjoyed this slightly shorter but very focused content, don't forget to drop a like on the video. If you're looking for more Planet Zoo content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Be trying to continue with the weekly uploads a little bit later this time, just due to busyness in the rest of my schedule. Finishing off here with the enrichment items, and I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.